In the previous video, we did create tables. So we started by creating tables. We did like basic commands like drop to delete a table, describe to view the content of a table. Now we are going to read from tables. So we are going to see how to view the data in a table, update that data, change, add rows, and more. So first command, viewing data. And one of the most popular ones in SQL is the select keyword. So select is used to retrieve data from a database, and it allows you to view specific columns or all columns. So if you want to view a specific column, you can do that. If you want to view the whole table, like all your columns, you can do that with select. So select column 1, column 2 from a specific table name. It can be all the way to column X. So you can specify exactly which columns you want to see, or you can view all the columns. How can we do that? To view all the columns, use the symbol star. So you will usually hear the term select star. Star is to view everything, like it means everything. So you say select star from table name. That means select everything or give me everything in the table. So the first one says I want, give me like the first names, the last names, and the date of birth. The second one with the star says give me everything from the table. So let's look at some examples for our table before we actually go into PubSQL. So this one says select star from student. Now you see where the name of the table comes into play. Select star from student. So what happens? It will give you this. Now remember, our table is still empty. We haven't done anything. We haven't added any value into our table. So that's what it would look like. Now if you say select first name, last name, GPA from student, then it will still be empty, but you will have a table. So it's going to give you a table with only the columns that you requested. So that's how the select keyword works. Select exactly this from a specific table, right? Because you can have multiple tables. So now we are in PubSQL and we are going to try to view the content from our table. So the first one, line 21, select star from student. So what is it going to do? I do my command, enter. It's showing me the table. And remember, the table is empty. We haven't added any data yet. And the second one, I want to select specific columns from the table. So I will say select first name, last name, and GPA from student. Always make sure you have your semicolon, that you have, your comma, and that everything is written the way it should be. If you don't write something properly, you will get an error. So now you see here the new result is giving me first name, last name, GPA. That's a new table it's giving me. That's how you can use the select keyword. Now we are going to use that a lot, so stay focused. Now that we have created our table and viewed the contents of our table, which is empty for now, we want to insert data into the table. We want to add data, right? You don't want your table to be empty. We already know what our table would look like from previous examples. So now we are going to try to insert data into the table. And the keyword insert is used to add new records or rows into the table. So if you want to create a row and add data, you use the keyword insert. This is essential for populating tables with meaningful data. So you don't want to leave your table empty, right? So use a keyword. This is what the syntax looks like. Insert into this table, like this specific table name, into these columns. Insert the following values. Value 1, value 2, value 3. Obviously, we are going to write that in PubSQL, but this allows us to populate tables with real data. Now, it's important to ensure that your data types match your column definitions. So in your first name, you only have varchar or text data types. In your birth year, you only have date data types. In your ID, you only have integers, because if you go and write text where you should have integers, then you will get an error. So it's also a good advice to use bulk inserts for efficiency. So when you have bulk data, insert them at once. This is an example of what it would look like of the command inserting into the table. So what can we see here? So what can we observe from this? First, the insert into. Insert into specifies the table to insert the data into. So insert into student, you're specifying the table where you want to insert data. That's the first thing. Secondly, column names, student ID, first name, etc. This defines which fields will receive the values. So where are you trying to add? Are you trying to add data in all of them or just in some specific ones? Then we have the values. This defines the actual data being added. And you can have multiple rows into one statement. So you can have multiple rows into one statement separated by commas. So at the end of the parentheses, if you take a look, you will see commas at the end of each of them. So pay attention to that as well. If you take a look right here, you will see all of them separated by commas. So take a look at that and pay attention to that. So at first, our table will look like this. And then when we use our insert command, after we have inserted every value, our table will look like this. So we leave from this to this. So let's go ahead and write it down in Popsicle. So this is the command to add your values into the table. Insert into students the columns with these values. So when I do a control enter, it has inserted into the table student. Now, how do you view your table? Do you remember? Select star from students and don't forget your semicolon. Now, if you forgot, you can click on run at the top right to run, or you do a command enter and you will see that all the values were added to the table. So here you go right here. I'm going to paste this in the description as well so that you can copy and paste, but keep it a good habit to create your own so that you can practice very easily. Now, for those who are using the web browser version, after you have created your table with this and you have inserted values into your table and then you do a select star, you click on run SQL on the top right here in blue, and you should see your table. So it says here output with your table. These are like custom tables made by programmers themselves, but this is your table right here with the content. Now we are going to filter data, right? If you want to read data within your table, now you can filter data to know exactly what you want to see. Maybe you don't want to see the whole table, you want to see specific data. Then you'll use a keyword where. Now, the star symbol, as previously mentioned, means all columns in the table. So I want to see everything. But what if you wanted to see only specific data, for instance? That's where the where keyword comes in. Where keyword filters records based on specific conditions. For example, imagine you wanted to see all students with the GPA above 3.8, for instance, like the top students in the class, or employees in the department. Like you can have a column department for people in HR, people in tech, people in corporate, etc. And you only want to see those in HR, you can filter, right? If you want to check customers who made purchases above a certain amount, maybe to thank them or to give them a discount, you can filter, right? So this can be used in the select, in the update and delete statements. And this is what it looks like. So select star from the specific table where the GPA is greater than this. And you can come up with multiple examples. You can come up with so many of them. But for this example, so this is what our table initially looks like, right? No changes. This is the table we just created. Now, if you do a select star from student where GPA is greater than 3.7, so this is, pay attention, not greater or equal to, but strictly greater. So that will be Whitney, Sam, and Anna. So we want students who are strictly greater than 3.7. That's your command. So what is it going to look like in Popsicle? So when we go and write it in the editor, this is what we have. Select star from student where GPA is greater than 3.7, and you hit your command enter. So it's going to give you what we expected. Initially we had this, if you remember, all the table. Now you say select star, like select all the columns from the student table where the GPA is strictly greater than 3.8 or 3.7. And suppose you wanted to do like an honor roll and you don't want to see all of that, you only wanted to see specific columns, then what would you do? You say select first name, last name, and you can add another like GPA from students. So this is only what you want to see. And it's going to give you exactly what you want to see, no more, no less. So try a few more of these to get used to it. Our next command is the order by command. So what does this do? This is used to arrange results in ascending or descending order. For example, you might want to sort students by the highest GPA or the lowest, or your most recent transactions. If you own a store, you can want to see the highest transactions or the lowest, or arrange products by price from highest to lowest, or arrange people by height. Like there's so many use cases, infinite use cases, right? So how do you do this? So the default order in SQL is sorts in ascending order. So from 0 to 100 upwards, or A to Z. So if you want to sort in descending order, you will add a specific keyword that I'll show you. But how you do this, select star from student, order by GPA. Now if you want to see from the best students to the least, that will be descending, so DESC. But if you want to go ascending, that will be by default. You don't need to add anything. And as usual, you don't need to select everything. You can filter specifically. So we are going to do that. So at first you have this, right? Your table as usual, no changes. Then after you enter this command, select star from student, order by GPA descending. If you take a look at the last column, it will reorder the tables. So it will go from 4 all the way to 3.6. So that's your select star from order by. So you want to order by as in ascending or in descending order. So let's write that on PopSQL. So here's our command lines 41 and 42. Select star from student, order by GPA in descending order. So if we hit command enter, now you can take a look here. You'll see that it goes from Whitney with 4.0 all the way to Marco 3.6, from first all the way to the least GPA in descending order. Now, if you wanted it in ascending order, you get rid of the descending, command enter, or you can hit run at the top, and you see that it starts from Marco with a 3.6 all the way to Whitney at the top. Now, like I mentioned, you don't have to use star. You can select specific columns to make your result cleaner, because keep in mind, this is a very small and simple table, but sometimes you will have like vast tables with so many columns. If you want to see only what's relevant, I'll say select first name, last name, GPA, and order by GPA in descending order. So this is what you can use like for class result, to display, to publish the results without necessarily having the birth year and the sex and the student's address and more data that you could have in a database. The next keyword we will learn is limit, to limit results. So what is this? What is this used for? So limit limits the number of rows returned. So you want to limit the number of rows that you return. And again, keep in mind that our table is a very simple table with only 5 rows and 6 columns, I believe. But sometimes you will have a table with like 20 rows, 20 columns, 100,000 rows, and you want to see only a few results. So that's where limit comes into play. This is very useful for performance optimization. Imagine you only wanted to view the top 3 students based on their GPA, or showing only your last 10 customer orders, or limit a limited number of records for your dashboard reports, or there are multiple ways you can do that. Again, the default order is ascending, so if you want something descending, use the keyword DESC for descending. So this is what it would look like. You select star from student, order by GPA, descending order if you wanted to view the top 3 students, and limit number of rows you want. So it's very self-explanatory. It looks like natural language. Limit number of rows you want. So at first we have our table as usual, no changes. Now take a look at the top 3 rows, still our default table. When we enter this command, remember we added the limit. So limit of 3, and you order in descending order. So there you go after. So you have the new table with the top 3 GPA grades in descending order. Let's take a look at that in PopSQL. So take a look at rows 44 to 46. Select star from students, order by GPA in descending order, a limit of 3 rows. So we will only have the first 3 students. If you want, you can limit by 2. And you will only have the first 2. You can limit by 1. You can limit by however you want. And you can select, as usual, a specific number of columns. So here I only want the first name and their GPA for simpler results, for less data to the computer, and for faster processing. The next command is the distinct command. So distinct is used to remove duplicate values in a column. Why could this be used? You can, for example, find all the unique student genders, like males or females, or all the unique job titles in the company, or all the different product categories in the store. You simply use the keyword select distinct. So I want to see exactly how many different of these I have. So before, our table hasn't changed. It looks like this, standard. And then after you enter this command, select distinct sex from students. So before we even display the table, how many distinct sex are in there? Male and female, 2, right? And so this is what the result will be. Let's take a look at that within PubSQL. Here's our command, select distinct sex from students. And when we run it, you see that you have only 2, female and male. Those are the 2 distinct sex that you have in your table. Now for tables with more elements, this will be much different, much better, because we will have more examples. Keep in mind, this is a very short table with limited examples that we can provide. But keep a habit of training on this and reach out to us if you want more exercises. Our next command is the update. Suppose you made a mistake while you were filling out the table, a student's GPA, for instance, or the student has changed, has a better grade or something. Then you can update a specific field, right? And update a specific value for a student. This is where the update comes into play. So it modifies existing records, updating a student's GPA after grade revisions, changing a product price in the store database, modifying employee salaries, multiple examples, so many examples, right? So here you will also use the where clause to prevent updating all rows. You can easily make that mistake where you think you're updating for one student, but it's updating for everything. So always make sure you're specifying. So update students, set GPA equal 3.8, where student ID equal this, or where student name equal this, or where student birth year equal this. Now, why did we use a student ID? Because that's the primary key. So you know that by using the student ID, which no one else has, you will only be updating for that student. Meanwhile, if you say where student name or where first name equal Whitney, you could have multiple other students called Whitney. So that will update the GPA for all of them. But when you update the student ID only, that's the primary key, it will only update for that specific student. Hope it makes sense. Let's take a look at this here. At first, you have this table, right? And then you have your command, update student, set GPA, where the student ID is 101. So now Marco will leave from a student ID of 3.6, sorry, a GPA of 3.6 to a GPA of 3.8. If you take a look at Marco, row 2, he will leave from a 3.6 to a 3.8. So you updated his GPA. So the where clause here is very important. If not, it can easily update for everyone. Imagine you had said where first name equal Marco, and you have like 5 other students named Marco. Now, even the students with the GPA of 1 will go up to 3.8. Fatal error. So this is our update command here. Update student, set GPA to 3.8, where the student ID equal 101. So remember, student ID 101 is Marco. Now that we updated that, we do a select star from student, command enter, and that will show you Marco 3.8. So his GPA updated from 3.6 to the one we set. And we set it at the ID, student ID of 101. So always make sure to do that on the primary key, so you know you're only updating the one in question. Another very important part of SQL queries is comments. So comments are used to explain SQL code, but they do not affect execution. So they are really like for the user and for whoever will be reading the code. This is important to document complex queries, because you can come back months later, take a look at your code, and you don't understand anything. But when you add a comment, you say, in this block of code is used to update Marco's GPA. This block of code is used to view only the top 3 students in class, etc. It helps you even in future understand and make the code cleaner. So it adds reminders for future updates. It's good to document your complex queries, and it makes your scripts easier to understand even for the teams you're working with. So you have single line comments and multiple line comments that will do like this. If you write this, for instance, in your code, this query fetches students with high GPA, and then you have your GPA query, that statement will not be executed. So that's fine. It's only for you to read. Let's take a look at how we can do this. So remember, this part was to update Marco's GPA. Now, if I do this part is to update Marco's GPA, and we execute this again, nothing happens, right? So we wrote this. This is not a piece of code, and this is just for you. So you can come here where it says here limit, and we said see the top 2 students in class, and you do this. So you see how I opened it and I closed it here, because if you don't close it, everything will be grayed out, so it will feel like a comment. But if you close it, you're fine. And you can close it on a different line as well. So you have multiple lines of comments only. So this is great for your own code, for future reference when you come back to your code. So you enter comments, either multiple lines or single lines, to help explain different blocks of SQL code. Now, for those of you who are using the online version, the web browser version, you paste your query, or you write down your query, you run, and it's going to show you here. So here we updated Marco's GPA, just like I showed you in the previous videos, and you can do all the other ones. So you can create all the other, you can write all the other queries and see how it works. Let us know if you have questions, and we will answer them in the comments.
I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media. Thanks again from CyberMuk, and we'll see you on our next course.